This story now. A top general in the South African National Defence Force and his wife are being investigated for tender irregularities involving multi-million-rand contracts. Reports suggest Nombasa Ntsondwa-Ndhlovu's company was awarded contracts worth over 100 million rand. The contracts for military equipment to be transported were allegedly awarded without following proper tender processes. Ntsondwa-Ndhlovu is married to Major General Noel Ndhlovu, and she joins us in studio now to perhaps refute the claims that came out in the Sunday papers. Mrs. Ntsondwa-Ndhlovu, thank you very much for your time. To be exact, about 180 million rand, the sum total of these two contracts. When the first contract was awarded to you in August of 2016, the specific amount for that particular tender was 79 million rand. How old was your company at that time?
All right. My company was registered in 2012. In fact, the first tender that was awarded to Umkhombe Marine was in 2014. It was a tender that is what was worth 24 million rands. That was on the logistic part of what the company does.
So that 2014 million rand tender, I'm sorry to cut in.
Not a problem.
It was awarded from the same Department of Defense?
It was. Yes, God, it was.
Your husband is Major General, as we've mentioned, Noel Ndhlovu.
Yes.
Were you in a relationship with him at the time of the awarding of the 2016 contract?
All right. Starting again with 2014, I didn't know my husband in 2014 when I did the work. I've been doing work in this environment in the defense industry. My company as a member of the defense industry, AMD, which is Aerospace, Maritime and Defense, and we are also a board member of this very body. The company is NCACC accredited, meaning it's National Arms Control. So the major part of what we do is to move equipment for the SANDF. We can move bombs, we can move live ammunition, or we can even then move the type of equipment that we move for them. I didn't know my husband in 2014. In 2016, yes, we were in a relationship. But my husband, when all this thing that was happening of 2016, he was actually deployed by the very SANDF joint operations. He was out in Lesotho. If you remember the SADC Commission of Inquiry, my husband was there in Lesotho for the killing of Brigadier General Mohawa. If you remember that, he was part of that commission. That commission was headed by Judge Pumapi, who was coming from Botswana. My husband's responsibility on that was to represent the SANDF. So he has never been part of any adjudication. But at the time, yes, he was a boyfriend, because we started dating in 2015, which was in February. Yes. So yes, we were in a relationship, but he was not in the country.
Here's a crucial question, therefore. So you knew him by the time that August 2016 contract was awarded?
Yes.
Did you, in the declaration of interest form, when you filled it out, did you declare that you were romantically involved with someone employed within the defense department?
Right. Because the question, can I open a document, or will that be too much?
You can, but time is against us.
Okay.
So I will ask you to be brief.
To be very quick. If you're looking at this SBD4, which is part of the documentation that I'm talking about, it actually mentions very clearly that if the person is involved in the adjudication of this bid, he has never been, because my husband is a medical doctor in the South African National Defence Force. He is not only now a Major General, which is a Deputy Surgeon General of the SAMS, South African Military Health Services. So he was never part of any adjudication that was done.
So in your declaration form, you admit, therefore, here that you never did declare that you were romantically involved with someone employed within the SANDF.
No, because
didn't have to sit in the committee,
he was not in the committee. That is the reason why I did not see that I should, because even with the 2018 one, because I've just sort of put all these documents, which was the last time that we did of 105 million, he was not part of it, because he is a deputy surgeon in the SAMS. He was never part of any adjudication. In such a way, my company, Umkhombe Marine, will never do work in the Defence Force with the SAMS, South African Military Health Services, because that is conflict of interest.
From what you know, which committees does your husband sit on?
My husband, as I'm sitting right here, right now, he is part of the South African Military Health Services. He has never sat in any committees that are doing the adjudication. For instance, the final decision maker in the South African Defence Force when you've done the tender processing is done by the DCPP board, which is chaired by Mr. Zondi. My husband, as a medical doctor, does not sit. In fact, there's not even a representation of a person from the South African Military Health Services that sits on the DCPP board.
So, going back to that initial tender that you received in August 2016,
okay.
When that tender was awarded for you to transport military equipment from Sudan to our country,
it was actually projection to Sudan and backloading of the unserviceable cargo back to South Africa.
4 days after that contract was awarded to you in February of 2016.
It was on the 11th of February 2016.
Of 11 February 2016.
Yes.
4 days after that, you receive a cancellation letter. Why did that happen? What was said to you?
You must also remember that I'm like in the counter of a shop where I don't know what is happening behind the scenes. But I'll tell you what is happening on the other side, because as a civilian, we had done all the necessary documentation, have done the submission. We got the appointment letter on the 11th of February. Then, according to us, there were no issues. We started making preparations. If you're looking at the Department of Defense, their financial year end is in March of each year. Now, you are being awarded a tender to do this work in 30 days before the financial year end. So we had exactly 30 days to do the preparations of airlifting the new cargo, which is the projection part, out of Waterkloof Air Base to Alpha Share in Sudan, do the distribution to Khartoum, to Malit and Mala, and pick up on those very three bases, and by road to Alpha Share again, airlift it back to Waterkloof Air Base. There is a lot of preparation that gets to be done when we have to do that. It's not something that you can simply overnight do. So when whatever it is that was happening behind the scenes, because I saw on the Sunday Times they're talking about, I think it's Captain Bologo, whose phone was off and whatever. There's no way we would know what is happening, because at that time we are doing the preps to actually execute and do the work on a limited time.
All right, let me ask you this question, because this is where I think they seem to suggest that your husband may have something to do with the awarding of these contracts to your company. On the 19th of January 2016, your company was already doing preparation work for this particular contract, when the contract itself is only awarded and is only worked on in February.
Yeah.
How did you come to know that this company, or the defense, was about to award a contract to move military equipment to or from Sudan?
That is not true. There is no way that we could have done that, because for such a preparation, for instance, I'm sure you're probably talking about the part that shocked us as well of the Russian aircraft. I'm assuming they're talking about the IL-76, because those are the aircraft that one would use when you're doing an airlifting of the staff, because of the size of the cargo that we move. There is no way.
So when did you hire this Russian airplane then?
Everything that we used when it comes to this particular contract is we subcontracted YNP Logistics, that they were going to do the airlifting part of it. Even them, they wouldn't have made or paid for the fueling and anything without an appointment letter. Because in order even for the financial institutions that are assisting us when it comes to doing the work or executing the work, you have to have an appointment letter first. Because we don't keep such monies sitting somewhere in a corner. We're a middle-sized type of a company. We're not a huge company that has such funds. So it's impossible. So those allegations are definitely not true.
So no documentation exists, in your view, to prove that your company had started preparing work for a
definitely not Umkhombe Marine. Definitely not. That I'm sure of.
Do you have the appointment letter for the November last year contract, the
yes,
105 million rand contract?
That's right. Yeah.
And whose signature is there? Is it from this Major General Thabiso Mokhotsi?
No. Any of the appointment letters that we've always had, it is done through the department. It's called CPSC. CPSC is the department that does the procurement. You, as a company, which is that does the bidding, you don't go behind the curtain, as I would say layman, where you will not know who is doing what. All you will know, and you only get to be engaged, is if you've won the tender. Because the first phone call that you're going to get is someone saying, come in and pick up the letter. Here is my sorry, just a sec.
So we're looking for the November 2018
appointment letter, yes.
And specific reference there should be a Major General Thabiso Mokhotsi, because that's the man whose signature has got to be on that document.
No. General Mokhotsi never signs it. That information, that the appointment letters get to be done by CPSC, not General Mokhotsi.
So whose signature then is on
there's
that?
a 2016, there's a 2014. Can I get my 2018, please?
You are now requesting for a document from one of the people that you travel
yes,
with.
Yes. That is it's my team. Can I get that?
Handed to us here. Let's try and wait for that document.
Can I get that appointment letter, please?
All right. So whilst we wait for that document, there is an investigation that I understand is currently underway by the military police, and you also before the Commercial Crimes Court in Pretoria. How do you plan to defend this?
First of all, we didn't know that there's an investigation that was going on. All right, we were as stunned, because if this was something that is clean, you would absolutely expect at least somebody to say to me, as the owner and CEO of the company, please give me the, okay, 2018, I don't have it.
All right, we are now, the gentleman behind you is perusing these documents.
The document, yes.
All right, hopefully he's going to get
No, it's there, it's definitely there.
It's all right.
It's definitely there. What I'm saying is we are not aware as a company that there is an investigation that is going on. We've never been contacted, and I'm surprised that we have actually been allowed to do the work of 2018 of the backloading, and yet there were issues. We've never not once come across anybody saying we're going to stop you, you can no longer do the work because there is an investigation that is happening.
Have you ever competed with any company? Because the understanding or the allegation is that there is no company that you ever competed against in these bids. These are contracts that are simply awarded to your department, to your company. And at some point, it is mentioned that your husband very clearly states at some point that this tender has got to be awarded, it's got to be processed urgently, therefore, people need to get a move on.
Claudie, my husband doesn't have such a power. Even if he was supposed to buy a pen for the department that he's in, there are all sorts of red tape that he has to go through. So it's impossible that he could have pressured people and saying that you will do the following. It cannot be. He is just a medical doctor. His responsibility in the SANDF on the SAMs is to worry about the well-being of a soldier. That's it. Anything that is medically connected, that has nothing to do with the tenders. He doesn't know who gets the tenders. He doesn't know who sits on the boards. So it's impossible. This is just a smear campaign to come after my husband.
In order to do what? To dismiss him from the employ of the Defence Force?
Not necessarily. Probably, if I may, if you could allow me,
Perhaps before we talk about your husband very quickly. I'm still worried about this issue of the tenders being issued or awarded to your company under the guise that there are other competing companies. Do you have any knowledge that you competed against any of these companies that are mentioned?
The information of what companies you compete with is not information that is available to you as a bidder. So you only know that you've won the tender after all the processes, their internal processes have happened. So it's impossible for me to know against who. But of course I know that because if you go for the briefing session, the room is full of people that you're competing against. You don't know who's who. You're sitting there just to ask your own questions and prepare for the actual tender documentation submission. Yeah.
Well, Mrs. Ntsondwa-Ndhlovu, unfortunately, it does appear that the letter, that appointment letter, the people that you're traveling with, they don't seem to be finding it. But hopefully, if we do...
No, I'll even leave it here because it's somewhere in our documents. I'm surprised that it just went missing.
Wonderful. And we'll be able to tell the viewers as well.
Please.
That, indeed, we have received the document from you. But importantly, you're saying that document will not bear the signature of Major General Thabiso Mokgotsi. Because
none of the appointment letters from CPSC gets to be signed by General Mokgotsi. He sits on, it's a standard practice. Everything that we do when it comes to getting the tenders, it gets to be done with CPSC. It doesn't get to be done with level 3, where General Mokgotsi sits.
And your husband, why would anyone have reason to want him out of this?
Maybe that is the part that I'm quite interested in. If I may, as I've said, my husband is a Deputy Surgeon General in the South African National Defence Force on the South African Military Health Services. Only last week, the minister, this is from a relevant source of someone that I know that is quite relevant, the minister they've been finalizing the succession plan. I am not saying that my husband, because he's a deputy, automatically he should be getting the position of the Surgeon General. But he is the most qualified person to be getting that position. It was a big war between the minister and her people in front of the president when they did not want my husband's name to be published on the succession plan of the people that are going to be appointed. If you follow what is happening in the Defence Force, November last year, the succession plan of the top brass of the SANDF was supposed to have come out.
In short, you're saying the minister does not want your husband?
No. The minister is the one who had put my husband down that he should be on the position of the Surgeon General. But the people, you must understand, the Defence Force is a boys' club. I am a black female. I am doing very well in what I do because I know my job. And if there's one thing, I'm very passionate about the work that I'm doing. But in order for them to remove the attention of the fact that they are grooming a colonel who is currently based in Cuba, to be the person that they are saying that we are simply going to fast forward and make sure that he goes through to be the Lieutenant General, because this is the person who's already been prepped to play the games of the people that are refusing to retire in the SANDF. Why? Because there are issues of that happening. For instance, there is a project called UTN.
Unfortunately, Ms. Ntsondwa-Ndhlovu, we have to wrap. I would have wanted to continue this conversation.
I do wish that someone can actually really look at this, on how the tenders are really, and the corruption that is happening in the SANDF. And my husband right now is just being a scapegoat for people that know that they are spending billions of rands.
All right. Nombasa Ntsondwa-Ndhlovu, thank you very much for your time. She is the owner of Umkhombe Marine, which is a freight and logistics company.